It was the kind of night where the wind didn't just howl, it screamed. Snow battered the windows of a small cabin on the outskirts of a sleepy town in Montana, and inside, James Carter, a single dad and a war veteran, sat by the fireplace with his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. He'd seen storms overseas in combat zones, but nothing felt quite as harsh as being alone with a child in the middle of nowhere, praying the power wouldn't cut out. Just as James was about to tuck Lily into bed, headlights pierced through the storm and then vanished into the swirling snow. Moments later, a pounding knock rattled the wooden door. James opened it cautiously and froze. Standing before him were 15 men in leather jackets patched with flaming skulls and the words Hell's Angels. Their beards were frozen, their faces raw from the cold, and behind them, their motorcycles were half buried in snow. James's instincts as a soldier kicked in, alert, cautious, protective of his daughter. Every small-town rumor about biker gangs rushed through his mind, but then he saw eye to the desperation in their eyes. They weren't here to cause trouble. They were here because the storm had beaten them down. One of the men, towering and broad-shouldered, simply said, "Sierra Broken Bar, we need shelter." Just for the night. For a moment, James hesitated. A single dad, a little girl, and 15 Hells Angels? It sounded like the start of a nightmare. But Lily tugged his sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, they look cold." That was enough. James opened the door wider and said, "Come in." The night unfolded in a way James could never have imagined. He cleared space in his living room, laid out blankets, and even dug out his emergency rations. The bikers, hardened by the road, quietly helped them Zavessa, but not before one of them offered Lily his own jacket because the cabin was still drafty. Another quietly repaired the loose hinge on James's door. One by one, James saw not gangsters, but men who carried their own scars, their own battles. Veterans recognized veterans, brothers in different wars. At some point, over a cup of strong coffee, James found himself swapping stories with the leader, a man named Cole. They talked about service, about missing family dinners, about what it meant to come home and feel like the world had moved on without you. For the first time in years, James didn't feel so alone. By morning, the storm had passed. The bikers thanked James, left quietly, and vanished down the snowy road. James figured that was the end of a strange but human night he'd never forget. But the real story began the next day. Around noon, James heard a distant rumble. It started as a faint growl, then grew into a thunder that shook the walls. Lily ran to the window and gasped. Lined up outside their little cabin, stretching farther than the eye could see, were motorcycles. Not 15, not 20, 102 bikes, chrome gleaming in the winter sun. The Hells Angels had returned up this time with their brothers from across the state. Cole stepped forward, smiling beneath his weathered beard. "You didn't have to open your door to us, but you did. We don't forget that kind of thing." And then, one by one, bikers began unloading supply boxes of food, stacks of firewood, tools, even a brand new generator. They had brought enough to keep James and Lily safe for the rest of the winter. Some even pressed wads of cash into his hands, refusing to take no for an answer. James, a man who had given so much in service, who had lost so much in his battles to raise a child alone, stood speechless. The men he had once feared had become his unexpected guardians. That night, as the roar of engines faded into the distance, Lily looked up at her father and said, "Daddy, you told me heroes wear uniforms. But today, I think some of them wear leather jackets." James pulled her close, his eyes stinging. He realized that kindness had a way of circling back, often from places you least expected. The storm had passed, but what remained was stronger than snow, stronger than fear. It was the reminder that humanity, whether in a soldier, a single dad, or a biker, was the thread that could knit even the coldest night into something unforgettable. And so, if you're listening to this story, remember, you never know the impact of one act of kindness. Sometimes it echoes louder than the thunder of 100 engines.